Hello there everyone, and welcome back to the neighborhood. We've got the Truthear and Crinacle Zero Red in the house for review. I was lucky enough to get this one in a few weeks early, so I can get my thoughts out to you as soon as possible. So let's get into it. This in-ear monitor is what Crinacle and others have been referring to as Project Red for the last number of months. Essentially, this is an update or retune of the original Truthear and Crinacle Zero. The tuning here is somewhat new, but the build is nearly identical, other than improved voice coils and reworked crossovers according to Crinacle himself. It's the same plastic shell, same case, same set of tips, same oxygen-free silver-plated Truthear cable, and a similar set of dynamic drivers on the inside. A 10mm PU, and a 7.8mm LCP. But rather than the blue, the faceplate on the Zero Red is, you guessed it, red, with a sparkly striated pattern rather than the swirl of the original. Also included in the box is an impedance adapter labeled Bass Plus that, you guessed it, raises the bass. I preferred the IEM without the Bass Plus adapter, but even with it, it's less bassy than the original Zero, and there's less bass bleed into the mix. But let's quickly get into the sound. As exciting as the red colored shell of this one is, I'm sure you're really here for the sonics. Like its predecessor, the Zero Red mostly follows the Harman target, but compared to the original Zero, the bass slopes more evenly and appropriately, with less of a mid-bass bump and more sub-bass, and the upper mid-range and early treble are less forward. The outcome here is a more even sound signature overall that is detailed, smooth, slightly warm, and simply a pleasure to listen to. It may not be the most resolving thing under the sun, but for the price of $55, this is an excellent option to consider. Even with the Bass Plus adapter, it's tuned absurdly well, and with the adapter you can kind of dial in your bass preference level. I mean, maybe you're a closet bass head. There's no judgment here. With that said, the bass does lack some detail, as most things do under $100 these days. Critically, it's not richly textured and rather one-note-ish, and often comes across to the ear as the same note at that. Maybe in the next Project Green version of this IEM, they will make use of a more capable low-end driver than the one that is used in both of the previous iterations of the Zero. I'd be willing to pay a bit more for that. The mid-range is represented well enough, with the early mid-range taking a backseat to the later mid-range. Nevertheless, the mid-range is more integrative and cohesive sounding than the blue Zero. It's never harsh, shouty, or sibilant. There's a mildly lush and velvety characteristic to the mids of the Zero Red, which is warmly flavored but universally enjoyable across both track and genre. But the treble could be better. The Zero Red follows a recent trend, dipping itself between 8 and 10K to avoid treble harshness and fatigue. It rebounds later for a sense of air, but I would have liked the treble to slope more smoothly and evenly throughout its frequency response. Even so, I'm sure this tuning approach was implemented intentionally, so as not to evoke the wrath of the treble sensitive, as this is an in-ear monitor tuned for the many rather than the few. Soundstage, layering, detail, and separation impress for the price, but instrument distinctiveness does suffer at times due to a similar tonality cross-instrumentation. The soundstage image is somewhat stepped back, but still somewhat large in its scope and scale, like looking down on the stage from a second-story overhang in an auditorium. My expectations regarding placement are met, and I find the overall experience and auditory image to be rather organic. So I think Crinacle took his time tuning the Project Red this time, and it shows. This is definitely my favorite Crinacle collaboration IEM since the FIO Eclipse FHE. It may not be as capable in its detail as that IEM, but it's certainly tuned well. Releasing at $55, I think a lot of people will be happy with its purchase. In the price range, it's a warmer, more musical offering compared to the competition, such as the Tin Hi-Fi T2 DLC and the TRN ST5 that I recently reviewed. My personal favorites around the $50 price point continue to include the Jade Audio EA3, HC Sound Waist Drum, and the Moondrop LAN. But the Moondrop GU, whose review will soon be out, is also no slouch either, coming in at only $26. I'll also continue to recommend IEMs like the HD Sound Heart Mirror Pro and the Aria Snow Edition for just a few bucks more. But the Crinacle Zero Red will now also be among the other suggestions. And before you go, make sure to smash that subscribe button, give the video a big old thumbs up, and leave a comment. There's also a website you can check out, a Discord, and a Patreon. So click the links in the description below. And with that, I'm out for now.